Over the last week or two, I've posted a few reels that are showing some pretty outrageous behaviors from kids and a couple from teenagers. And honestly, some of the comments have really stuck with me. Not just comments about what people thought the parents should do, although there were a lot of those, but comments about what they would do if this was their child. And some of them were incredibly harsh towards the kids. And some of them were incredibly harsh towards the parents. And it got me thinking about something that I wish that we could remember more often when we're talking about difficult kids. Behavior does not change our worth as human beings. Not yours, not mine, not this child's. A child can do something that is completely unacceptable, dangerous, or even really, really hard to understand. And they are still a human being with dignity and full of worth. And a parent, they are still a human being with worth and with dignity. And a parent standing beside them, trying to figure out how to move through this or how to get through it or how to survive this moment that is publicly being videoed, they are still a parent that may be doing everything that they know how to do. I've been working with families like this for years. Families whose children are very aggressive, kids that are constantly fighting, not just with each other, but with the parents, kids who are melting down, they're destroying things, they're refusing everything, or making home feel completely unpredictable. And I've worked and still do with parents who are exhausted. They've tried everything that they can think of. They are scared. And sometimes when people see a video of a child behaving like this, the response is, well, if that was my kid. But here's what I want us to remember. You are seeing a moment. You're not seeing the entire child, and you're not seeing the entire family. You don't know what happened 5 minutes before the camera started. You don't know what the parent has already tried. And you don't know how many therapists they've called. You don't know how many nights that they've cried. You don't know how many times they've prayed for their child or prayed for someone that could actually help. You have no idea what that family has been carrying. And more importantly, you don't know what that child's carrying. You don't know where they've come from. You don't know if this is their first time having a meltdown or their 150th time, and this one was amazingly short compared to what else the family has been dealing with. So what if we looked beneath the behavior? One of the biggest shifts in my professional work has been learning to ask a different question. Instead of how do we make it stop? And that might be the question that parents come to me with. I like to ask, what is this child struggling with? Where are the lags? Where's the gaps? Dr. Ross Green has a simple phrase that has influenced a lot of what I do. He says, kids do well if they can. I always say they would do better if they could. And if we believe that, it actually helps us to parent, to be better providers for these kids. It's not if they want to, it's actually if they can. And that doesn't mean that we excuse harmful behavior. And it doesn't mean that there shouldn't be boundaries. It doesn't mean that a child gets to hurt somebody just because they're having a hard time. I am totally against that. But it means that we have to become curious about what's underneath the behavior. Dr. Mona Delahouki has helped parents understand behavior as information about what is happening inside the child's nervous system. And Dr. Bruce Perry's work has helped us understand the importance of regulation and relationship in helping children access the skills that we are asking them to use. So when I see a child that's doing something outrageous, my first question isn't what's wrong with that kid or what's wrong with that parent. It's okay, what's happening here? And this is where my faith comes in. I'm a Christian, and my faith has changed the way that I think about families and children because I believe that every child is a child of God. And that doesn't mean that every behavior is acceptable. It just means that the behavior doesn't determine the value of the person. And your child's behavior doesn't determine the value of you as a parent. It's a level of difficulty. And I think that distinction matters enormously, because we can say that behavior is not okay without saying that child is bad. There was a lot of name calling on those videos of the kids. Like, who does that? Who would say those things about a child? We can say that parent needs to intervene without saying that parent is a failure. We can hold someone accountable without stripping them of compassion. And I believe that's true whether you're talking about a 2-year-old that's having a meltdown, a teenager that's making terrible choices, or an adult who is struggling with something that they don't yet know how to handle. What we do matters, but what we do does not erase our worth. Faith doesn't mean that we never need help. That's another place where my faith and my professional work have deeply connected. I believe that God entrusted children to parents. And I believe that stewardship sometimes means recognizing I need help. And asking for help doesn't mean that you don't have faith. And it doesn't mean that you're a bad parent. And it doesn't mean that you failed. God has given us therapists and doctors and teachers and mentors and friends and church communities and people with wisdom and experience. And sometimes the answer to a prayer is not that the problem suddenly disappears. Sometimes the answer is that someone shows up who helps you to know what to do. I also want to tell you that your child is not your enemy. And this may be one of the most important things that I want parents to hear. Your child is not your enemy. Even when their behavior is awful, even when you're angry, even when you're exhausted and you're at your wit's end, even when you've had the same conversation 47 times, your child is still your child. You can hold a boundary and love them. You can say, I will not allow you to hurt your brother, and still communicate, I love you. I will do whatever it takes to keep you safe. You cannot destroy our home because you are angry, and still communicate, I'm going to help you to learn what to do with that anger. Connection doesn't mean no boundaries. Grace doesn't mean no accountability. And compassion doesn't mean allowing harmful behavior. Even if your child's come from hard places and you understand why they act out like that, compassion doesn't mean allowing harmful behavior. Because sometimes love looks like a firm boundary. And the boundary isn't that your kids are crossing your boundaries. I have to help you to understand how to set a boundary and how you hold that boundary. And sometimes love looks like getting professional help. And sometimes love looks like saying, we are going to figure this out, and it's going to take as long as it takes. So to every parent who's exhausted, if you've watched this thinking, you don't understand. My child is really hard. Maybe I do. I've sat with a lot of parents in that place, and I want you to hear this. You are not a bad parent because this is hard, and you are not failing because you need a different kind of help. And your child's not a bad kid because they're struggling. And isn't it amazing to think that we could combine all of that into a firm plan? There are skills that your child doesn't have yet. And there are things that are happening underneath the behavior that you haven't been able to see. Even if you understand it, you don't know how to come around it. And these are things that you have to learn. And that's okay, because that's growth. And if your child is older and you think it's too late, it is never too late. We can always turn things around, and things can always get better. I believe that family is worth fighting for. My faith has made me even more committed to something that I've believed throughout my whole career. Family is worth fighting for. Not perfect families, not families who never struggle, not the families that look like everything is going the way it's supposed to go, but real families, and families that are exhausted, and families that are extremely worried, families that are trying to figure out what to do next, families with kids who are struggling. I don't think our job as parents is simply to raise children who are easy to parent. I mean, if you've got one or two or a whole family full of that, yay. But I don't think you'd be listening to me if you don't have anybody that's struggling. I think our job, no matter what, is to love, teach, guide, protect, and steward the children that have been entrusted to us. And sometimes that means learning how to understand a child that's very difficult to understand. And sometimes that's going to take changing our whole approach. And it may mean that you need help, because changing your approach is not as easy as just reading a book about changing your approach. It sometimes means remembering that underneath the behavior is a child who is still worthy of love and dignity and connection and hope. So the next time you see a reel or are in the store and you see a child behaving terribly, before you decide what you would do if that was your child, remember, you're seeing a moment. You're not seeing the whole child. You're not seeing the whole story. We can hold children accountable. We can protect people. And we can still have boundaries. We can still have compassion. Because behavior doesn't change our worth as human beings. Not theirs, not their parents, not yours. I believe that your family is worth fighting for. And sometimes the first step is just realizing that you don't have to fight alone. Listen, if you want some extra help, there's lots of ways you can get a hold of me. Go to Parenting Challenging Kids, the Work With Me page, and set up an appointment so that we can just talk about what's going on in your home. I want to help. I know that I can help. So contact me. I look forward to hearing from you.